But my name's Bill Zimmerman. I am a university navigator here. I'm also finishing up part of my duties as the assistant director for employer engagement with the Career and Professional Development Center. And tonight's professional panel series is called What Do I Do with an English Degree? So I'm going to have our presenters and I've got three panelists here tonight who are going to speak with us about this topic. I'll introduce each of them. 2 out of 3 of these panelists are IUP alums, so yay. And I'll go ahead and get started. We do have a lot of people both in the room as well as on Zoom. So I've got some questions on this handy dandy little sheet in front of me, but hopefully the people either here in the room or on Zoom also may have questions. For the folks who are on Zoom, you can feel free to put those in the chat and I'll kind of read them out and we can answer them. But for the presenters, just kind of give me like a hey for a wave. If you want to jump in first, we'll just kind of popcorn go around as we can. Okay. So I'm going to start with looking at my sheet here. Cherie, and I apologize if I mess up your last name, Borschnell or Borschel?
It's Bouchel. You actually did the hard part correctly, which is Cherie. So Cherie Bouchel, thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm really excited to do this. I am one of the alums from IUP. I graduated in May of 2000. It feels old to say that, but May of 2000, and my degree was in English, just straight up English with a minor in history. I live in Pittsburgh, so I can see downtown from my house, so I'm in Pittsburgh. And I've probably been working in an English-related field for about 14-ish years at this point. So I did not do it directly out of college, but I can talk more about that later. But that's me.
Great. Thank you very much. Next, I have Karen Kuhn.
Yes, that's me. I'm also an IUP alumni. I graduated in 1999, so that's going back a few years. I was an English major. I minored in German, of all things. I then went to law school, and I've done some other things, which we'll get into, I guess, later. But I now live in Roanoke, Virginia, and have been here since 2002, I guess. So that's me.
Thank you very much. I know we still have a couple people filtering in. And then finally, we have Jenna Schaefer from the Pennsylvania Mountain Service Corps.
Yes, hello, that is correct. I am Jenna, and if you haven't noticed, I am the third one and the only one to not be an IUP alum, but still love the school, had lots of friends that went there. I'm currently in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, so very familiar with the university, and really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And again, just getting some folks to grab some seats. Again, we've got a packed house here, so that's great. But I guess you all kind of started to tell us a little bit about yourselves, but tell us a little bit about like your current organization and your position. And I don't really, whoever wants to go first, let's do it that way.
Okay, I'll go. I guess
You're the first one on my screen, so go.
Okay, all right. So as I said, I graduated from IUP with a degree in English, and I knew I wanted to go to law school. That was pretty early on. I had decided that. So I did. Right after I graduated, I went to law school, graduated from law school, passed the bar exam in Virginia, practiced for a few years with a large firm here. I did corporate work and environmental work. I liked it, but it just didn't feel like I wanted to do that the rest of my life, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I then just started talking with different businesses, different people I knew, and I landed in my current job, which is I'm legal and compliance officer for a steel fabrication company. My company, Precision Steel Manufacturing is what the company is called. We make things out of steel for customers, various customers. We make everything from, small little electrical boxes to large components for drilling and mining equipment or utility trucks. My role is advising the business on various legal issues, whether that be employment law issues, general business issues, also various compliance things. Safety is a big thing in our industry. And so I oversee that program to make sure that we're being safe, that all our employees are being safe. We also have an environmental program for, water permits, air permits, all the things to make sure that we're leaving the environment better than we found it, hopefully. So I oversee all of that. So my role is really very diverse. I like it. It's a lot of variety. But if you had told me when I graduated from IUP with a degree in English that this was the job I would love and end up with, I would have been like, what are you talking about? So that's just a little snapshot of where I am and what company I work for.
Thank you. Cherie, do you want to go next, and then we'll do Jenna last?
Sure. I work for a company called Black & Veatch. It is a construction engineering company, and it is based in Kansas, so Overland Park, Kansas. I work remotely. I go into the office. We have a local, we have regional offices all around the country. It's a global company as well, but there's a regional office here. And so I go in there once a week, and the rest of the time I am working from home, which is just a wonderful delight. And it's something I wish would happen way back in the day. And like, thank you, COVID. I'm sorry, COVID is bad, but because of it, I get to work from my wonderful office. So that makes me happy. Black & Veatch, like I said, is a construction engineering company. So what I do there, my title is Employer Brand Senior Strategist. So a lot of the work I do is basically working with recruiting and letting people know why this is a great company and why you want to work for us. I also work kind of working to retain the employees that we have and letting them know like all the great things about the company and things they'd miss. An alumni as well, like sometimes we have boomerang employees who come back, so working to kind of get the message out to them. So it's very similar to what you think of for branding for a company, but mine is the employer side of it. So basically I am the person who kind of markets us as an employer and the place to be and the place to work. So I do it's a mix of marketing, social media, HR, recruiting, and a little graphic design. So it's a random mix of things that I do all day. I absolutely love it. I love it to death. It's different every day. And it's not something I thought I would do. First of all, social media didn't exist when at least when Karen and I went to college. It did not exist. So no, this was not something I thought I would end up doing. My original goal was to go into public relations. And I don't know if we'll talk about this later, not how I ended up doing what I'm doing, but I did not go through that path. I worked in like every different company I can think of. So I worked for Dick's Sporting Goods. I worked as a property manager. I worked at the International Spy Museum. I worked for Harris Teeter. I worked for FedEx Ground right out of high school. So I did a whole bunch of things, not directly related to English, but I actually started working in this field during COVID. A sorority sister of mine from IUP told me about a job, and that's how I got into the field. So those connections are important that you make.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it.
We actually have at least some members of a fraternity here joining us, so it's good for them to hear that message, Cherie.
Yeah, my sorority was is Zeta Tau Alpha, so I was in that. I don't know what it's like now. I have no idea, but we were super awesome back in the day. But yeah, stay in touch with the friends you make.
Jenna.
Sure. So I come at this a little bit differently. I don't have a degree in English. However, I have kind of a twofold thing I'm going to pitch for you today as to how I, in my role with what I do, use those types of skills and kind of mirror Karen and Sherry, both what they have done But also I want to mention the opportunities that I have for you to then grow in your career. So I am with the Pennsylvania Mountain Service Corps AmeriCorps program. And what AmeriCorps is, it's a federal national program that's basically like a domestic Peace Corps. And I, in my position, work with local nonprofits, school districts, and environmental organizations to place people in basically full-time community service positions for up to a year. And in my role, I kind of was, like I said, I don't have a background. My background is actually in agriculture, and I had a really strong sense of community service growing up in the programs that I was with. And then once I graduated college, I was an AmeriCorps member myself. And what I was tasked with was at an environmental organization being their community liaison, for better words. I was an education and outreach coordinator with them. I did their membership database. I did their newsletters. I found that I enjoyed all of these things, and that led me into my position here, where I have and have kind of switched roles. But at one point, I was doing the same thing for the Pennsylvania Mountain Service Corps, or PMSC, AmeriCorps program. We are located in this south central, southwest Pennsylvania area, and I have been able to reach into underserved communities and create networks with not only organizations and nonprofits, but also folks like you who are taking their next step in their career. And then the second piece of kind of my pitch today is the opportunities that then are available with the organization that I work for that can lead you in a bunch of different roads with being interested in English and communications and things of that nature. So like I said, kind of a two-part for me here, but really excited to jump into these questions and teach you a little bit more about what I've learned, but also what I think I can have to, offer.
Thank you.
Sure.
Now, before I turn to any of the questions I have here, does anybody in the room and or anybody on chat have a question? Okay. Maybe you'll think of one as we go forward. So I guess, and Cherie, I kind of want to turn back to you for a second, because you brought it up initially. You talked about your very interesting journey that you've taken to your current position. So I guess, what are some of the paths or some of the career paths, career options, etc., for someone with an English degree? And Cherie, since you kind of opened the door there, I'll let you go first.
There's a whole bunch of options I realize that are out there. I couldn't get them at the time. I will say my first important piece to say is to do an internship. If you do not do an internship, do one now. I was told to do one. My big sister, this was probably back in like 97, 98, when I was joining my sorority and having fun. She's like, during the summer, you need to work somewhere. You need to get some sort of internship in your field and doing something related to English. So she's like, whether that's writing or editing or just anything where I was like, just kind of typing or writing something up. It didn't matter which type of writing. It could be like technical, creative, whatever. She said, you need to do something. And I said, okay, that's fine. That's great. I did not do that. I decided to work at my local grocery store every summer with my friends. So when I graduated in May of 2000, I could not get a job to save my life. And this was back when, again, you don't really search for jobs on the internet. So you had to get out the newspaper and like your red ink pen. And so I'm like looking through like the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and like looking for everything to do. And I really couldn't find anything. So I somehow ended up as a temp working in inside sales for FedEx Ground. And FedEx Ground is based in Robinson, a little suburb of Pittsburgh. So I started working in inside sales. And again, that was nothing related to anything I knew or wanted to do. But a position opened up in customer service. And I said, well, I know how to speak. I'm really good at problem solving. I would end up having to type a lot. I was like, well, I can write, I can type fast. So, I mean, this is my tiny way in. And then from then on, while I was in customer service, basically I sat there and answered like between 180 to 200 calls a day from angry people looking for their package. So I thought of a way, and I did this with every job I had since. I tried to find a way that I could somehow bring English into the work I was doing. So I noticed that they did not have a newsletter at the time. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we have an employee newsletter? And so, getting different voices and, pieces I would collect from all of all the customer service agents and things from the managers and post it. And so I ended up doing that, and it got me off of the phone. So one, I was super happy about that. But it was also just something that got me writing. It got me thinking creatively and kind of knowing how to ask questions and kind of spread a message a certain way. So that's how I got into it. And like I said, every job after that, if I could somehow bring English into it, I did. So I don't know if I'm the best person to answer as far as like the different things you can get into and do. Like I said, I wanted to do public relations, media relations, anything like that, but I didn't have an internship, so I couldn't just jump right into that. So I had to kind of go the long way around to get to a communications career. So that's my answer.
Thank you. And then either Karen or Jenna, I don't know which one of you would like to go next.
I'll jump in here. I think, honestly, there's a lot of things you can do with an English degree. And I say that because those of us who've gone through a program like at IUP or elsewhere, you've done a lot of reading, you've done a lot of writing, you've done a lot of analyzing, you've learned how to communicate. Those are all skills that every business needs in one form or another. You just have to figure out, what are you interested in doing and what business need could you fill for somebody? And that's not always an easy question to answer, but the core skills that you have, every business needs. So think about the things that you enjoy and that you would love doing, because having a job you love makes life so much better. And I mean, we spend a lot of time at work, so you might as well enjoy what you do. And obviously, if you're in an English program or a communication program, you like to communicate, you like to read, you like to write, you like to think. Every business needs that. So it's a matter of what direction do you want to go in? And for me, that took a long time. Like I said, I went to law school thinking that, I would go into traditional practice and I would just be, the good old law firm attorney for the rest of my life. But what I found was I didn't like it. But fortunately, I said, I liked the law. I didn't regret anything that I'd done, but it just took some time to figure out where I fit in. And so don't be afraid to explore, because what you try at first maybe isn't going to be your life's work, but you learned something from it. You used the skills you had, you've made connections, and you can find another position that is eventually, hopefully, something that you love and that you enjoy.
Thank you. And then Jenna, if you want to talk either about your own experience or experience from folks you've worked with.
Yeah, sure. No, and Karen, those were great points. Hopefully, you're enjoying what you're doing in the education that you're receiving and the classes that you're taking. And for me personally, in my coordinator role with the Pennsylvania Mountain Service Corps, it's really interesting to see the different avenues that some of our folks, the people that I get to work with, take. Again, taking that communication element and the ability to talk to people and to write to people and to take what you learned and use it to reach diverse populations and underserved populations. So from my perspective, I get to see folks do that all the time to help with nonprofits and their outreach, to get their points across, again, to reach those populations that don't usually get to be reached, because communication is so important. And, the skills again, like Karen said, that you're building are going to help you in any industry, in any position. And the folks that I get to work with, it's a really interesting thing to see how some folks with the English degree and English background, some folks without, but they're able to work with the community and not only serve the community, but build their own skills. So that's kind of my perspective on the folks that I get to work with in the different paths that that the English major can take them.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask again if there's anybody in the room who has a question or anybody on Zoom. No brave souls. Wait, I see one. Ha!
In some of my English classes, I've been hearing a lot about the talk of the English major being like a dead major. So I was just wondering what you all think of it.
Did you all hear that?
Yes.
Yeah, essentially. The question
I'll go
was,
ahead and respond.
Go ahead.
I don't think it's a dead major. I think it's one that is often misunderstood. People just think, if you're an English major, maybe you can teach. That's what you're going to be an English teacher, which that's great. If that's what you want to do, there's opportunities for that. That's great. But it's much broader than that. Like we've mentioned, coming up to the skills that you learn, you don't learn in a lot of other majors. I mean, I can't tell you the number of applicants that I see in my line of work now, from various backgrounds. They can barely write a sentence. As an English major, I'm pretty sure you can probably write at least a basic, pretty good sentence, and you can articulate things. That goes a long way. Reading complex material, as an English major, I don't know what all classes different people have taken, but you're going through everything from, poetry, short stories, various types of literature, various types of essays. That's a lot of dense material. And in any job, there's going to be material that you've got to learn, you've got to digest, you've got to understand. You're practicing that now. So you can still use that same skill. Like a lot of things, you have to practice, you have to get better at it. And as an English major, you're practicing those good skills, those practical things that are going to apply. It just may take you opening other people's eyes to make them see that, oh yeah, I have an English degree, but look what I can do. Because a lot of people just don't realize what that means. It means a lot.
I'll echo on that and say that it's definitely not dead. I know everyone thinks that, you major in English and then that's it. Like, what else can you do besides like write poems and things like that? And again, you might need to do that somewhere at some job. But the thing about it is if you're an English major, you can write. So if you can write, you should be able to sell yourself and your skills. So if you see a job that you like, write yourself into it. I don't know if they still do cover letters. I know like a couple years ago when I was like searching for jobs, they were still doing cover letters, but sell yourself. Why should you get this job? So, what makes you, an English major, the perfect person to have such and such job over somebody else who might have, like a little more background in it. You can sell yourself and, and like Karen and like Jenna said, like everything that you do, it kind of builds up to that. You can write, you can read, you can research, which is very important. You can put together, complex matters and, it might not be something like, like an engineering thing, like solving puzzles or anything like that, but there's still little pieces and there's things that you can do as an English major, or that because you're an English major, you are able to do at a job that other people cannot do. I've had friends of mine who've done hiring like HR, and they said they didn't hire somebody because there were so many spelling and writing mistakes on their cover letters that they thought they were illiterate, like they couldn't do anything on the job. And, and that was just applying for any position. So you have that in the bank already. Hopefully you should be able to do that. But it's definitely not dead because I feel like it's taught me so many well-rounded things. I can think of things like very specific classes of mine where I learned something and like I still use that today. Like I'll go to do something like, oh my gosh, I learned that. This was from one of my journalism classes, or because I took some journalism classes too. But it sticks with you and you can use it anywhere. So it's not dead.
Jenna, anything to add?
I think they said it all. Yeah, you can sell yourself, you can write and be able to just to explain yourself and why you fit in the job. And from a nonprofit perspective, I've worked in the nonprofit world since I graduated, and to help nonprofits tell their stories is really unique. It's really valuable. So if you're looking to get into that sort of realm instead of the for-profit businesses, the nonprofit world, it's different, it's special, and they need storytellers. And I think that is a great use of the knowledge that you all are gaining in where you're at in your classes and such.
Other questions? Go ahead.
I was wondering what sources of support, social support, emotional support, help to keep you going when you weren't sure what your next job would be, that kind of kept you persistent and kept you going.
Were you all able to hear that? Okay, just making sure before I went on. So, Jenna, you're up. Why don't you start?
Sure. So, and I may not have that English background, but the biggest driving factor for me with everything that I've done with learning how to be a better communicator in the positions that I was kind of voluntold, so to speak. You know, when I first joined that environmental organization, they had a need and it needed filled, and I wanted to try. And one of the biggest things that kept me going, and again, it's different in the nonprofit world, I think a little bit differently, but it was my ability to be able to communicate well and efficiently and effectively with underserved populations, and then show that I can make a difference in my community. So the work that I was doing environmentally was great, but it was the touch that I made in the world. You know, I did have a few communication classes in college, and the one that sticks with me the most is the one where it was not a technical writing class. It was a writing class to be able to communicate with basically farmers who a lot of the times don't have higher education. So to be able to take language that was a little bit advanced and make it understandable for all types of people, that was really something that stuck with me, that I used then in my positions. And then I got to see that effect of people understanding what I was saying with the environmental things that we were doing and how they could help the environment and how it all related to them. And then to see the changes and to see the work that I was doing in the community, for me, that was a big driving factor to continue and then want to continue to help those sorts of communities as I continue to work in the nonprofit sector and continue to then help other folks also work in this sector.
Excellent.
I'll offer up a comment on that, if that's okay. Some of the things that I found helpful when I was, I mean, as we talked about it, when I went to law school and then I was practicing and I didn't like it and I was like, oh no, what have I done? I've spent all this time and money and I hate where I am and whatever. What I found helpful for me was to reach out to other people in the community. And what I did was I started with kind of people I knew and just talked with them about, you know, what kind of job do you have? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? How did you get where you are? Just kind of hearing their stories. And they would sometimes connect me to other people. Sometimes I would find just cold call somebody, you know, a business that I'd heard of. And probably 90% of the time I found somebody who would talk to me. And just asking those questions and kind of getting out there made me feel like, you know, I was learning, which I like to do. I was making connections, and I did ultimately find my dream job, but it was putting myself out there and kind of taking that risk a little bit, which is uncomfortable a lot of times. And I'm not an extrovert. I am very much an introvert. I'm a more small group kind of person than a large crowd. But for me, that was a great way to network, to feel connected, to feel like I was making some progress. And I learned so much and actually met a lot of people that I still keep in touch with in the business world and as you know, as friendly acquaintances. So I would say just kind of put yourself out there and try something. Doing nothing isn't going to help you, but do something, even if it's a little bit out of your comfort level. It will probably pay off. And remember also, I think that you don't have to get it right, or it doesn't have to be perfect. It could take time. You can take the scenic route and enjoy the wandering and the exploring. It doesn't have to be a straight line from A to B. Just be open to possibilities.
My support system, I guess I would say, was LinkedIn. I'm an avid user of LinkedIn. It is my favorite social media site. Let's see. The most I used it was during when COVID started. So prior to COVID beginning in like February of 2020, I worked at a nonprofit like Jenna. I worked at a domestic violence agency in Pittsburgh. It was the Women's Center and Shelter of Greater Pittsburgh. So I didn't have any sort of training whatsoever in anything related to domestic violence because I ended up being the marketing manager. But what I did know how to do was kind of connect with people and write their stories and share them. And then that ended up, working to kind of solicit donations from people who, wanted to help out, educate the public about things like that. So that was my job at the time. But COVID was chopping a lot of jobs and I lost mine. So I did fall into a doom spiral for a little while, and my support system was my husband. But I could only lean on that so long because I needed to get a job. So I turned to LinkedIn, and I used that. I used everybody as my support system. I just kind of put out some feelers for anybody, who was hiring, or anybody who had any positions available that was somehow related to English or communications or marketing, anything like that. And I used my English major to kind of be a storyteller. So I noticed probably I grew like most of my following during that time because I was kind of just letting my heart out, what it's like to lose a job, what it's like to be searching for a job, what it's like to be an English major, and, where am I going to work? What am I going to do? So I wrote all kinds of posts like that. And people must have felt endeared towards it or something like that. I don't know. They understood and they got it because everyone's been there. So my biggest thing was probably support from LinkedIn networking. And if you do not have a LinkedIn page right now, I suggest you go right after this and set one up. And if you have questions, you can ask me. Because it really did help me just kind of reach out to people. And like Karen was saying, people are more than happy to help you and talk. So if you see somebody out there that has the job that you want, send them a message. Just let them know. Be like, hey, I'm a student in IUP. I'm really interested in getting into this field in the future. How'd you get your job? What do you do? What's your day like? Do you have any advice? Anything like that. So just kind of put yourself out there and go to LinkedIn.
Thank you. Other questions, either from the room or from the chat? Feel like I need the Jeopardy music or something. I'm looking over my own questions because it's like, we kind of touched on that, I guess, are any of you aware of specific industries, or are there specific areas where folks with an English major might be in higher demand?
I mean, I can't think of any company that I know of that doesn't have some sort of communications department. So whether it is, communications / internal comms, external comms, the media department, the marketing department, every company should have some sort of communications department. So, like me, I worked for an engineering and construction company. I have no idea. I can't build anything or construct or engineer anything, but I do work on the communications team and I'm able to use my skills that way. So I feel like even if there's not necessarily if there's a company that you think of that and you're like, I really want to work there, like Highmark Health, for instance. I used to work there. I'm not a health person. I don't have any sort of health degree, but there was, in the communications department, employer brand person that I could be. So if there's nothing specifically that you see that's out there, just kind of just shout out, because every company needs to have somebody communicating their message to their current employees and to employees that they wish to have.
And I'll add on to that. I think the really exciting thing about having that English degree and being able to kind of have the options to go a lot of different places is you can be really what you want to be. If you want to be more behind the scenes, I know, we've talked about the different things that people have done and the different positions that we've done, that you're kind of behind the scenes and just putting out this information and communicating with people. Or you can be in positions where you're maybe the face of the company and you're talking to the public and telling about your company that you're working for and the industry that you're working for. So I think that's really exciting that not only is everybody kind of looking for or has some sort of communication department, but you can really be in the forefront, be in the background. There's a lot of different options. I think that's super exciting.
Karen, anything you want to add?
I would just kind of echo what Cherie and Jenna said. Every company has a need. It's a matter of finding what company you want to be with and showing them how you can fill their need. So thinking about what you're interested in, and then finding businesses to talk to. And again, it can just be a conversation, not that you expect a job, but if you can get somebody to talk to you, you never know what might happen. Often they say it's not what you know, it's who you know to get a job. So just putting yourself out there, asking some questions, talking to somebody, there might be a possibility or a job that you didn't even realize, or they didn't even realize, where you could fill a need. So.
I'll look again. Question. That'll go with one of mine. The scratching, or do you got one?
Oh, no.
Nope, just itching. Okay. Let's talk real quick about, because I know we kind of mentioned it a little bit, but misconceptions. What are some of potential misconceptions that are out there about individuals who have English degrees? Like what's the whole you have an English degree, here's what I think you should be doing, and that's not the case. And I know we touched on a few of them, but we can definitely revisit them.
I've run into the misconception that basically I don't know how to do anything else and I don't have any other skills. So I do something very easy like write and spell. So, I've actually heard this from people before. And I'm like, no, not really. So that's a big myth. But like we've all said, every company is going to have somebody who needs to do something communication wise. So you're going to definitely be needed no matter, which company you go to. But that's one of the big myths, like that we can't do anything else. All we know how to do is write and read.
And I think something, it's not maybe necessarily a myth, but it's something a lot of people don't realize. When you have background in English and communication, you also are very good at analyzing and critical thinking. Those are great skills, which again, every business has a need for. So don't lose that piece. Yes, you can communicate reading, writing, but you also can critical think about things, analyze things, explain them to other people, teaching other people. That's an aspect of my job. I do some training with employees and with supervisors. So that's communicating, but it's teaching also. So, all of that you kind of learn to do when you're always working with words, written or oral. You're analyzing. Those are great skills that people don't think of when they, you have an English degree. They don't think about all the other things that, yes, come along with that.
Yeah, I think you both kind of covered covered that. And I think it really is about what you make of yourself and how you put yourself out there and explain that, yes, this is what my degree means, but I can do all of these things because of it.
Glad we started to talk a little bit about some of the skills, because I think that was where I was going to head next, was what are some of the skills, some of the things that folks, if they're looking for positions and they might not necessarily be straight on with that position, what are the kind of things that would be a skill that one might want to emphasize on like a resume or a cover letter? And potentially along with that, how do you show some of those things that aren't quite, I was going to use the word tangible, but I guess that's close, but that are sometimes hard to show on just a piece of paper? Whoever.
I'll start off with a comment on that, I guess, to answer a piece of that. I think one of the things you have to be able to communicate is your willingness and ability to learn new things. Because look, we're trying to sort of sell ourselves that, yeah, I have an English degree, but I could do X job. You need to be able to show that not only can you communicate and critical think, but that you are able and willing to learn new things and to grow. Because that's a lot of time what a position, you're not necessarily going to walk into a job on day one and know how to do it. But if you're somebody who is able to learn, is comfortable learning, wants to grow, wants to do more, and you can emphasize that, I think that will also serve you well in whatever job you're interviewing for or applying for. You know, look, I may not have exactly the background and I haven't done what you want on day one, but I'm able to do these things and I have these skills and I can learn and grow into that position, into what is needed.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And right off the bat, if you are applying with a resume, you know, that resume is a really great tool to show, yeah, I know grammar, I know how to spell, I know how to make things neat and organized and easy to understand. You know, they say a potential employer can look at your resume in it's like 5 or 10 seconds, determine you know, if you are going to be on their candidate list or if they're just going to put your resume aside. So I think that starts from the very beginning, is before you even show yourself or explain yourself, that piece of paper is so important. And you have the ability and the skills to be finessed in your writing and your getting your points across. And yeah, then being open and willing to learn. And like me, I was there was a need, I was put in it if I wanted it, and I took the reins. I did some classes, I took some social media webinars and workshops, and went that direction. And I think we've talked about it too. People are looking, social media is big and different avenues, and having skills to know how to get the analytics of Facebook and Instagram and see what posts are working and what the audience is, and all those sorts of things are important skills to learn if that's the avenue that you want to take. And of course, there's, we said, so many different paths that you could take, you know, and you don't have to know right away, but starting to dip your toes in the water of some of these things with internships. Internships are just as good for knowing what you want to do as knowing for what you don't want to do. So, you know, both sides of that coin you can get from the experiences. But yeah, I think important to show yourself off before you even show yourself off is that resume right up front.
Yeah, and I'll echo on that, and this one really isn't tangible, but just if you have a website, just so you can show, you know, some pieces of your work in it, and classwork does matter too. So if you haven't done an internship yet and you've done something like really, you know, central to what you want to be doing when you graduate, put that on your website. Just show examples of like things that you've written, things that you've communicated, designed, anything like that, because that can also speak for your work. So as you're on that cover letter and the resume trying to, you know, speak for yourself and kind of sell yourself, then you also have that in addition, you know, like, here, click this link, you can see my page and all these things that I've done. So
Excellent. One last time, I'm gonna ask any questions here in the room or on the chat, because I know we're running out of time. We probably have time for one or two more. Yes.
I was wondering, like, how do you like find like internships in like the English field? Because like I feel that like I haven't been as lucky finding those types of jobs. So yeah.
You all heard, where do you find positions, particularly in English, internships, those kind of experiences?
Part of it helps if you at least have some sort of idea of what you want to get into with the English degree. So if you know that you're looking for a position where you want to be a copywriter for a company or junior copywriter, something like that, you can at least search by that title and look for internships. I know there's sites like handshake.com that always post like a lot of different internships. But I guess the key word is making sure you can like put in there what you want to actually do with this major. And I know a lot of you are probably thinking about it at this point, but if that's something you want to do, that way you can specifically look for it.
Karen or Jenna?
Yeah, I think that's important, is to kind of maybe have an idea or a direction that you want to go to, and keep in mind that what we've been saying this entire time is that there's a lot of different industries and organizations that could use and need a communication person. And if that's something you want to do, kind of open up your scope of your search to just those different positions and maybe specific industries. And then maybe you'll come into a position that, oh yeah, that is maybe doesn't have the word English degree in it, but that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a person like you who can communicate and reach people and talk to people and that sort of thing.
Karen, anything to add?
Not really. I echo what they say. And finding an internship is just like finding any other job. I mean, you have to figure out what interests you and what direction you want to go in, and then show how you can fill that need.
Yeah, I'll do a couple of little shameless plugs here. Handshake, obviously a big one to be able to search. We are a Handshake school. Number two, some of our career fairs. We have either our career fairs or our career night events that we're doing. If you're looking for something particularly in government or nonprofit, we're doing a fair towards that next semester. If you're looking for something just in general, more general business, and we get different kind of organizations through that. Our spring fair that we do at the end of February. There's also the Westpac Fair, which they hold in Monroeville, which has over almost 200 organizations who attend that particular fair. So there are a lot of ways to look. Again, it's kind of that you'll have to read the job descriptions and the position descriptions a little bit more to see if they're speaking to the skills that you're looking to gain. Good. Other questions? Or from the chat? I'm looking over mine to see if there's any other quick one I can sneak in. Otherwise, I might just turn it to starting to go into the wrap up, where usually what I do is have our folks at the end, is there, maybe a piece of advice, a resource, other things that you could recommend to students who are, looking for positions in this field or looking for positions that would involve their major that we maybe haven't already talked about. I know I'll give you a little bit of thinking time on that one too, since it's pretty broad.
Well, I will use this time as kind of a like like what you said, a shameless plug for AmeriCorps. AmeriCorps, like I said, is a great way to get your foot in the door and find things that you want to do, because it's a temporary position. It could be 9 months to a year. And with my organization, we serve, like I said, Southwestern, South Central Pennsylvania, but AmeriCorps is all over the nation and can put you into a position where, and again, it's community wellness, nonprofits, education, even environmental stewardship, but looking for connecting organizations with underserved populations, with diverse populations, and filling needs, critical needs in our area. And it can be a great opportunity to be like an internship. You did get paid, you get an education award to put towards your schooling, but it gives you an opportunity that's, like we said, temporary, but gives you an idea of, yes, I love this. I love working with people face to face. I like to be the boots on the ground. I like to be communicating and sharing information, or, you know, just the opposite. Nope, I think I want to be in the background. I really love communication. I really love writing, but maybe I want to do something that's not this. So that, you know, is kind of, like I said, my shameless plug for my organization, but somewhere AmeriCorps in itself, no matter where you're at, is a great stepping stone and a bridge into a career path that you may have never seen, or a career path that you think you want to go on and go towards. It's just a different way to think about internship opportunities, because although we advertise as such, it's considered national service. So it still gets you that real world involved experience as a person in your career in the English field, in the communication outreach realm of things. That can be another path that you might want to explore upon graduation.
With me, I feel like I've kind of given all my pieces of advice that I have right now, at least that I can think of. So my shameless plug will be networking, and I put my LinkedIn in the chat, so you have it if you want to connect with me, or you think of a question later, you don't want to ask it right now in front of everybody. But yeah, my piece of advice is start networking now, because I wouldn't even be in the specific field that I am right now had I not started posting about, you know, what I wanted to do and what kind of position I was looking for on LinkedIn, where my sorority sister friend from 20 years ago happened to see the post and knew of a position that was opening up at her company. She worked for Highmark Health. She knew a position was opening. It hadn't been advertised yet, but she kind of got me right in there directly to talk to the boss who was hiring for it. And, you know, we connected really well. And even though I hadn't specifically worked as an employer brand person before, I had everything else that fit the description. You know, I could write, I could do social, I could write, you know, long form, short form, snippets, blog posts, you know, anything. So that kind of fast tracked me in there. And that was all because I was networking with people on LinkedIn. So that is my, again, piece of advice.
Excellent. Thank you.
And that's great advice. I would agree with all the advice that's been given. I would just add one more piece, maybe, that be open to new opportunities and new possibilities and ready to explore. That love of learning, that exploration, that can apply in your job too. And I know that can be stressful. You're trying to find a job or you're trying to figure out your career, but you don't have to get it right on the first shot. It's kind of a journey and not just get there and be done. You know, you could go through several jobs. Maybe you like them all, but you grow from one to the next. You don't have to get it 100% on the first try, but just find new things, find things you enjoy. And somehow it will work out, even though if it may not seem that way, but it will work out. If you're finding things you enjoy, you're doing something you love, you'll be led to the right place.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll do one final shameless plug, and I'm going to kind of step out in front of the camera. Don't forget about the Career and Professional Development Center. We have folks who can sit down with you and do some career coaching. If you're not sure where you want to go, you know, we have different tools. We have different things we can work with you. If you're having trouble with that resume, if you need help with, you know, interviewing, if you need help with a LinkedIn presence or with your Handshake presence or with other things, with the events that we do, we definitely have something for you. At this point, I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank Cherie, Jenna, and Karen for their time tonight. I appreciate them coming. I appreciate all of you coming. Like I said, this is my last one of these, unfortunately. The gentleman there in the back of the room, Jeremy, will be taking over for me next semester. So we'll continue to do various panels like this. But unless anybody else has any other questions or anything, I think we're good to go. Have a good night, everybody.